discuss about building the future. What are the essentials that one needs if we want to create an effective infra build? And talking about all this and more will be our next set of speakers. But before that, I would once again like to urge all of you all that since we've all gotten together from the industry, there are lots and lots of talk points that I'm sure all of you have had through the day. We would really request you all to head to whichever social media platform that you happen to be active on, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, whether it's LinkedIn. Share with the world what is it that you think is needed, and we're all reading your captions out there. Please do tag us, and let's make sure that we're trending the hot topic for the day and the week as we talk about this very, very important segment. I'd also like to share with you that right outside, whenever during the networking break you do happen to step out, we've created a wall. You can scan the QR code, get yourselves clicked, and post it as well. And looking forward to the next set of speakers. May I please present to you our moderator. We have with us Mr. Bhaskar Subramanian, Advisor Infrastructure, Deloitte, India. May I request you all to please put your hands together as he steps on stage. A reminder to please take a seat as per the image on the backdrop so it's easy for our audience to connect. Our esteemed panelist joining us on stage, Mr. Arun Goyal, member, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. Please welcome him with a round of applause. May I also present to you Mr. Sudhir Hoshing, Chief Executive Officer, IRB Infra. We thank you, sir, for being here. May I present to you Mr. Vinod Kumar Yadav, Director, Transport, former Chairman and CEO, Railway Board, NCC. Let's hear a round of welcome and applauses. May I also present to you Mr. Shrikant Badiga, Group Director, Phoenix Group. What a pleasure to have you join us, sir. And always a delight to learn from leaders as we look forward to this very interesting segment right here. All yours.
Thank you very much, and a very good afternoon to all of you. Like our compeer pointed out, we have the earlier sessions were covered a variety of topics, starting from government initiatives to what kind of financing is required, what kind of PPP, especially infrastructure as service, is possible, sustainability, role of technology, decarbonization, etc., etc. What in this session we are looking at discussing and talking about is how do we, keeping all of these factors in mind, how do we or what do we need to do as a nation across various sectors to effectively build the infrastructure that we are looking for, whether it is 2030 or 2047. To help me discuss further, I have two renowned personalities from the government sector and two from the private sector. So, just a little bit of background before I, invite our panelists. The whole day we've been hearing about huge infrastructure requirements. Over and above the infrastructure requirements, we all realize that every year we are not building as much infrastructure as we should. So there is a certain backlog that is there. And then on the infrastructure that has already been built, the lack of adequate spending in maintenance is also showing up in many places. Again, over the last few sessions, people have talked about the challenges that we are facing, institutional, policy and regulatory related, financing related, etc. So, to start with, I'll ask or rather request Mr. Goyal, Arun Goyal, currently member of the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, to talk about the challenges as well as the the steps that are required for accelerated development of renewable energy. Our last panel talked a lot about decarbonization, green infrastructure. So, Goyal sir, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Bhaskar, for this opportunity. So firstly, we have a little look at a broader picture. So we have set a very ambitious target for ourselves in the renewable sector. So as a part of net zero target that we have kept for 2070, so there are short-term targets for 2030. So what we want to do is that have 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel, so essentially renewable by 2030. And we also want that generation also, 50% of the generation should come from the renewable sector. So if we look at the stage we are at present, so at present, approximately 50% of our installed capacity is through the renewable sector. But in terms of gigawatt, it is approximately 200 gigawatt. So in next 6 to 7 years, we want to take this 200 gigawatts to 500 gigawatts. Similarly, if we look at the generation and renewable energy that we are consuming, so even though the installed capacity is roughly 50%, but in terms of energy, it is only 21 to 22%. And this we want to take to 50%, 50%. So we have set very, very ambitious targets considering that it's only 6 to 7 years that are left for us. But number of steps, both in harmony with the policymakers and regulators. So number of steps have been taken, and we are moving in the right direction. And you all must have been hearing that the kind of renewable capacity that we have been aided in the last few years, and the rapid progress is being made. So on a regulatory side, what we have done, the few steps that we have taken is like we have given must-run status to the renewable generators. That is, like in case you all of a sudden get sunlight or the wind is blowing fast, and in case the generators are generating at a say higher rate, then we would ask the conventional energy sources to go down, whereas the renewable generators will be having the must-run status. Similarly, that energy that is being produced from the solar and the wind, so they are being exempted from the transmission charges. In order to encourage renewable power, what we call renewable purchase obligation, the targets have been given for the distribution companies, which at present are in the range of around 25%, and going forward by 2030, they would be around 45%. So out of the total energy that they are purchasing, so around, at present, around 25% has to be through the renewable sources. Going forward, it would be around 45 to 50%. And other than that, number of regulatory steps have been taken to make power exchanges very, very vibrant. And we, around 2.5 years back, we introduced a product called real-time market. Because of the variable nature, intermittent nature of the renewable energy, because all of a sudden you can get sun or the wind can blow, we need to match generation with the load. So just to give an example, now we have a huge mega solar parks, say around 3,000, 4,000 megawatt, and all of a sudden we get a cloud cover. So this is the kind of the generation that will go away. Now it has to be compensated immediately. And how do you do it? So we need flexible sources of generation, and regulatory effort is being made that we encourage generators to have a better ramp up capacity, that they can immediately ramp up and they can get a higher. And similarly, that is why the gas generators also play an important role, because they have a higher ramping rate. Now, in this scenario, when we are thinking of investing and having huge renewable capacity, the role of private sector becomes very, very important. And to that extent, we really need a very, very conducive environment so that we can attract not only domestic investment, but also foreign investment. We've been getting foreign investment, but of course, there are issues. I would like to cite one particular thing, people who are there. So we all have, now most of the renewable generators are coming through the transparent bidding process. So the tariff is being given for 25 years or 35 years. Now what happens is, during the period, each contract has a clause of change in law and force majeure. So we have seen that, there are taxation changes that have taken place, but by the time it takes to get their dues to the private sector, it takes time. So the regulatory environment is being improved so that whatever is due to the private generator is given as soon as possible. So I think the private sector is going to play a very, very important role. And I would like to sum this part, like we have a typical trilemma, I would say. Firstly, we want affordable power, but we also want reliable power. And added to it, we also want clean power. Now, you want reliable power and clean power, this has a cost. So, Of course, we want affordable, but some cost is there. It has to be factored in. So I think I'll end at that. Okay.
Thank you, Arun sir. Uh, this panel has been fortunate because we have speakers from across sectors. So the next one, I would like to request Shrikant to talk about how he thinks. Shrikant comes from the Special Economic Zones Council. So I would want Shrikant to throw light on the industrial infrastructure, which is what he represents, how it is likely to um, ramp up in the coming decade or so, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Subramanian, for this opportunity. This is in continuation of what Goyal was trying, the part of infrastructure. Like we all know, like in the last, especially decade, in last 5 years, especially the kind of pace India is going forward and the entire world is looking at us. So I would like to share, maybe I'm personally a developer of IT special economic zones in Hyderabad. And we have almost 8 special economic zones, and we are moving forward to come up with more number of industrial parks, especially SEZs. The gut feeling what we have, like that would be a success story, because I would like to share my experience being a director of World Visions Organizations also, which is a global body. Whenever I'm meeting my other colleague directors and boards, so they were looking at India in a very big way, especially in the manufacturing sector. What our nation right now is lacking behind is carbon development of huge manufacturing special economic zones. The reason being, people used to feel that the infrastructure was never in place. But now, as on this hour, we see the Gati Shakti is coming up, the Sagarmala concept is coming, has already come up. In the recent past, last week only, government has released an GO, development of ports throughout. What is happening is the hinterland connectivity. The people like us are looking at, what is that we can do? It's not only development infrastructure, but whether the people, the main units, for us, the units are our bread and butter, be it in ITSZ or in manufacturing. So larger manufacturing units, I'm not talking about pharma cities or textile cities, which are, they're really doing good. But having said that, when you want to look at India as another Italy, another Europe, another US manufacturer, or competing with our own neighbor China, as on date, the kind of development is happening, the beat in the government policies, the coordination with the state and central and state government is really doing good. And our observation is like most of the policies are tailor-made. When I come up and asking the government to set up an industrial park that have money, it's not only the consist of money, but the tailor-made policies by both state and central government is playing a major vital role. And I'm sure in the coming future, more and more industrial parks would come up. It's not only the coastal ports I'm talking about, even in the landlocked areas like Madhya Pradesh, even in the state which I come from, Telangana, we are proposing to come up with 2 to 3 dry ports, because it is very rich in natural resources and agro farming. So I see a very bright future. And in the just a couple of hours back, I was also discussing about the kind of speed. I'll give you a small example. Like last 4 5 years, we were restricted to travel not more than 60 to 80 kilometers per hour on the same highway and the highways. Now the same government is asking me not to travel less than 120 kilometers on the highway. So that is the speed, which I would like to bring on board, and it's very encouraging also. And last point I would like to make is, always used to see other countries as, land of opportunity. But most of my colleague directors on World Peace Zone, and when I go to the US also, I'm the part of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, they see India is now a land of opportunities. So I'm not very far on competing. Don't take China into competition, but I'm competing myself. That India is competing with ourselves. I'm challenging myself. So as an investor, a developer, and as a unit, I'm very happy with the progress of India is what is happening to make. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shrikant. Next, I would request Vinod Yadav, not in his current role with Nagarjuna Construction, but in his prior role as Chairman Railway Board. With that hat on, what do you think should be, sir, the priorities of railways? From a safety angle, from a speed angle, investments into where should investments be flowing into when we are talking about the infrastructure bill, sir?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. So I'll just give you a brief overview of railway infrastructure. As you rightly mentioned in the beginning itself, that there is a lot of backlog in infrastructure development in various sectors, and railway is not exception. The way infrastructure should have been developed in railway for last 50 years, somehow it could not be developed, and which has created a very, very peculiar situation, means there is lot of capacity constraint. Just to give you an overview, railway has around 68,000 kilometer network. Out of this 68,000 kilometer network, 11,500, which is around 16% of the network, carries 60% of the traffic, which is golden quadrilateral and golden diagonal. And if we calculate traffic density, it is already between 130 and 140, which means we designed the system to run 100 trains, we are already running 130, 140 trains, and which creates a lot of problem regarding safety. We are not able to run trains. Like passenger segment, everybody is aware, if you want to travel to Mumbai or Kolkata, you won't get, means if you want to buy a ticket, even after a month, you will get waitlisted ticket. Why? Why this situation? If passenger trains are required, we should be able to run the passenger trains. Similarly, freight segment. Now the modal share of railway is now only 25%. 65% is being carried by the road, and remaining 9-10% by shipping and other modes. Now, we need to create the infrastructure for railways so that we should be able to run passenger trains on demand. We should be able to see that modal share of the freight comes at least around 45 to 50%, which is the global norms. In 2019, when the new government took over, they really decided to, go for railway infrastructure development in a structured manner. And 2019, railway came out with National Rail Plan 2030, which is available in the public domain. And basically, the main parts of this NRP 2030 is, number one, multi-tracking of all congested routes. 34,000 kilometer route is getting congested in next 1 year or 2 years. They are nearing 100%. So all these 34,000 kilometer track need to be multi-track. Multi-track means where double track, it should be triple track, where 4 tracks, 5th track, something like that. So multi-tracking. Second, for the freight infrastructure, we have mapped, railway has mapped the requirement till 2050, depending on what are the industries in pipeline and things like that, what are the ports in pipeline, power generation plants in pipeline, and they have come out that there should be at least 4,000 kilometer of additional dedicated freight corridor is required. The feasibility study has already been done. So that is being planned. Similarly, port connectivity projects, coal connectivity projects, various siding connecting to the industry, multi-modal logistic park, freight terminals, all these have been mapped. So NRP 2030 really spells out that by 2030, railways should be able to develop the freight in such a way that the infrastructure is beyond the capacity, because we have been lagging the capacity. So basically, capacity has been lagging the demand. So NRP 2030 says that we should be able to develop the infrastructure in such a way that 2030, we are able to meet demand. And the total cost they have worked out at 2019 price, around 40 lakh crore. As a subset of 2030 plan, we had a Vision 2024, and that is being implemented, and I'm very sure that NRP will be implemented by 2030, and then we should be able to bridge this gap. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We have amongst us another private sector person. So, Sudhir ji, from your viewpoint, how has PPP in the road sector, when is it likely to go back to BOT, or are we going to continue with HAM for a lot of time? Your views on that, please.
Okay.
Yes, see, it was way back 14, 15. We had a lot of BOTs, and there were some troubles around that, and then the BOT was shut down almost. There were very few, one or two projects every year which came, and fortunately, all those projects came into our kitty. So, so. I would say that now that more than 15, 16 projects are already announced on beauty toll, some of them will be hopefully successful, and there are various companies which are bidding for that. But one side, the government wants the beauty sector to come up, and the other side they have issues like I think it was discussed in the morning. I was told that you cannot have arbitration, so it's impossible because you don't have a perfect system. There has to be dispute, and those disputes have been taken positively because there are things which missed, and that's why there has to be a confidence level that okay, if not directly, I have an arbitration system through which I'll get that money. Similarly, one side you want the lenders to come in and give money to you, and that is very much required for your BOT projects. And you say that for lenders we'll have to give 5% provisions, which will again increase the cost of lending, and that will impact, of course, again back to the government. You will not be able to give much of premium, or will ask for more grant, or the projects will become more unviable. So if you want success of BOT, then all these things have to be seen. Otherwise, if I say it has to be either EPC or BOT, HAM is good for nobody, because if you go by the numbers, ham actually is good for something where the risk is mediocre risk, and nobody is bothered about that risk, and the project is bid like something, and then it goes on for lifetime. So I would suggest that beauties are good, but it has to be supported well, so that it will be government norms. It will be better for government, because whatever money they get, I can just give you example. If they get 1 lakh crore as a budget, 95,000 crore goes in land procurement. So where from money for annuities will come, where from money for grants will come, and other things, the construction, EPC will not happen. So beauty is a very must.
Thank you, Sudhir. Yes, ham, like someone in the earlier session pointed out, it is just a little bit more than EPC. That's about it. There's hardly any risk sharing. Talking about risks, I'll go back to Arun sir. Arun sir, the elephant in the power sector room is distribution. So, from a CERC viewpoint, I know that the distribution is more a state subject, but from a CERC viewpoint, what are your views on distribution related reforms or changes?
Thank you. Even though like in CRC, we don't directly deal with the distribution, but I happen to have worked in Delhi power sector on 3 occasions. So I've been closely associated with distribution, and people who have been in Delhi for a long time, they would have seen the transformation that has taken place in Delhi. Of course, in that, the privatization that took place, I was also involved in that to a large extent. So the things are improving, but still, there are many other distribution companies uh, in the country where still a lot needs to be done. So if you look at the overall picture, still the overall accumulated losses of the distribution companies are more than 50,000 crores. And almost say 1.5 lakh crore units are, handled every year in India. And the overall, if you see the statistics, for every unit that is being sold in the country, approximately 50 paisa loss is being incurred. So roughly, you can imagine, so 1.5 lakh crore into 50 paisa also is around, it's a huge amount. And the main reason for this is that we need to have cost reflective tariffs. Of course, again, going back to my earlier intervention, we all need affordable power. But then if we need reliable power and adequate power, it needs a lot of investment. And once you make the investment, the return has to be there. and therefore there is no way out that we don't have the cost reflective tariff. So even say 10 paisa increase in the tariff in the unit, they roughly adds to around 50,000 crore rupees to the system. So that's the kind of money that the size of the sector is so big. Even though, I mean, people even resist, 1 paisa, 2 paisa, or 10 paisa increase in the price of the power. But I'm just saying the sensitivity is very, very huge. So even 10 paisa increase leads to around 15,000 crores. Similarly, like we have made quite a bit of progress as far as the AT&C loss is concerned. And like giving example of Delhi, when before the privatization, the losses were in the range of 50%. I mean, now it's around 8 to 9%. But overall in India, the losses are still around 15%. Again, bringing AT&C losses by 1%, we again add around 8,000, 9,000 crores to the system. So I think the main two issues that are important for the distribution is that we need to have the cost reflective tariff, and secondly, we need to bring down the AT&C losses. And I think a lot of steps, and recently Ministry of Power, they came up with late payment surcharge rules. So that added a lot of discipline into the system, because now everyone is being forced to pay their things in time, and otherwise the sector is regulated. So I think this is, I would like to say about distribution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I'll move on to Vinod, sir. Sir, given that we are talking about accelerated infrastructure building, what steps, if at all any, can be taken to increase private sector participation in railways?
Thank you. A very good point. Basically, the freight infrastructure, which has been envisaged, includes 4,000 kilometer freight corridor, many multimodal logistic parks, connectivity with the ports, coal connectivity projects. So all these projects really can be open to the private sector. Already the private freight trains are being operated in the shape of container trains. So there is a huge scope that if railway can involve private sector for developing these freight terminals, freight corridors, and then we will be able to increase our modal share of freight, which is very negligible right now. So that is the sector where private sector can really help. Thank you.
If the organizers allow, I just want to ask a couple of questions to the other two panelists, starting with Sudhir. Given someone pointing out the number of deaths on Indian roads, from your viewpoint, what kind of measures can be taken for safety standards in Indian roads?
I think this is the best question which is asked me, because this is my question which comes from my heart, because we do so much of construction, and I have analyzed, and I have roads like Mumbai, Pune. You still find a lot of deaths there, accidents there. We have around 1.5 lakh deaths per year, and maybe that is the reported number. Unreported, I cannot tell you. Uh, So whenever we analyze in my road, if anything happens, we analyze why it happened. Is there a dark point? Is there some boards are not there, or the curve of the road is not suitable? So these are the design aspects. Okay. First thing is, in highways, if you are segregating the two opposite traffic, you are safe. And then if you have allowed various junctions and various crossovers for the pedestrians, then again you are safe. If this is done, your job is done. But the problem is, and all the signages, whatever. The problem is not here. The problem is in the basic education. So it's the how do you get a license? How do you drive? It's a drunken driving, over speeding, and I had sat with many drivers who cannot read the boards. So what's the use, putting signages and all those? So they don't read it. They don't know how to drive. Lane driving, you don't know. So if you ask me, if I want to reduce the accident, it's everybody's job. It's not only road will be made at the, it's everybody's job. Nobody gets license without, without proper or exam and all that, which happens other places I have seen, and that's why they have lesser this thing. Uh, this is what I can leave it because your times is already up maybe.
Thank you, Sudhir. So I'll end with one last question for Shrikant, which is, given that you wear the private sector hat as well as the public sector hat because you're working with Ministry of Commerce and all, if you want to ask, wearing your private sector hat, a couple of things from the government for the special economic zones, what would those be?
Uh, as you know, the SEZ's launch was very good. It took up very well. It's a success story. But the inconsistency in the policy has really bothered and put the SEZ in a very bad light. But that's not true. You can see a lot of success stories happening. To quickly answer your thing, yes, a request through this platform to the government is to consistency in the policy and to enable more and more ease of doing business, just not talking, but to make at all different levels. Of course, we are trying to do that. And in the coming, the SEZ 2.0, you can see a lot of developments happening. We personally got a chance to be one of the stakeholders to do some developments. So this would be the main ask. But don't bother, let us do our own businesses. What is happening is, quickly I'll tell you, see, I came onto the board of EPC as chairman. People believe me that I'm an expert in it, but my business is to develop my infrastructure and deliver it to the buildings. But I'm coming as an advisor to the government. That is not right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, audience, as well as a big thank you to all the panelists.
Thank you so very much to our wonderful panelists. And like you said, the more we delve on this wonderful subject, the more thoughts that we are sharing out here, the more discussion points and learning. So big thank you to all our panelists right here.